We just had Steve Warren on the other night, and he runs the Warren Academy, and so we talked some about the in-state talent and everything, and how things. I asked him, have things changed in the last 10 years talent-wise? And I guess you'd be a good person to ask this too, having coached throughout that. I showed you this before we went live. This is our graphic that we show that just highlights how many kids right now in state are getting offers from all the different years. 8 kids this year alone. Have you noticed, has the talent improved across the board, or is it more that kids are going to camps and getting more development, in Nebraska? Or how have things changed in-state talent recruiting wise in the last 5, 10, 15 years that you've seen?
I've been coaching for 24 years, and then I played in college and, all the way back through high school. So I've, been involved with this a long time. And I don't think there's more talent now than there was. In 1997, Nebraska won a national championship with 10 Nebraska kids on the team, so you could probably say there's some pretty good talent in the state that year, but a lot of those kids probably just didn't get too many offers anywhere else. I think two things, though, they're just recruited differently for 2 reasons. One of them you just mentioned is the camps. The way colleges do these camps the last, 5, 6, 7, 8 years or whatever it is, since they went to those kind of one-day formats where, it used to be if you wanted to go to a football camp, you got to shell out $300-$400 and spend 3 or 4 days. And it's just a grind for 4 days. You got to take off work and miss weightlifting and all those things. Well, now, like for Nebraska, for example, with their Friday Night Lights format, it's affordable. It's one evening. You get to go to the stadium. You get to be coached by those great coaches down there. And so kids are able to get to all kinds of camps. Like I said, we're taking Dalton to 10 different colleges this summer. And we were just at Brookings, South Dakota State this weekend. And there was probably 15 to 20 other coaching staffs there. So by the time we're done with this tour of camps, he'll probably get 30 or 40 different staffs with their eyes on him. The other thing is huddle. Since digital video has went wild over the last decade, it's just got kids out there a lot more. When I first started coaching, the only college coaches that would see my kids are the ones that I, was able to make a VHS copy and put in the mail. Well, now any college coach literally in the world who wants to see any game of any kid, if they want to work hard enough and get into huddle and check out the videos, they have access to it. And so it's really opened up this national recruiting to all these kids. So I do not think we're any more talented now than we were. I just think the kids' names are out there more, the videos out there more, and I think Nebraska kids have proven themselves. And you see people, coaches all over the country reaching in and grabbing kids. The McIntyre kid from Fremont Bergen just gets commits to Oklahoma. So yeah, I think they're getting their name out there more. And I really, probably the biggest one has been huddle. That's just been an absolute game changer for recruiting for kids and getting Nebraska kids out there nationally.
Well, and recruiting such a relationship game too. And now that I think it's a good thing, number one, that other schools are coming into the state too. I don't care if they are, I want us to get our kids and I want Nebraska to keep them, but I want Nebraska kids wanted and pursued by schools all over the country. I have no issue with that. It's kind of music to my ears, actually, what you just said, because it's such a narrative that, the talent has to be better today, because obviously look at all the kids being recruited, but my goodness, we won a national championship in 97. 9 of the 11 starters on offense were from Nebraska. The only 2 that weren't were linemen, of all things, Husky and Taylor. But, we had a quarterback from Wood River. We had, of course, the 8-man Brainerd fullback, one of the Macavickas, right? Of course, there's Mon Green. And I'm from Columbus. There's Tim Carpenter starting as a tight end. And, that narrative that I love the talent that we have right now. And I think it's great that they're getting identified. And I love the camps and everything. But I also think that we've had talent here for a while. And there's times where we've had different coaching staffs over the years that have skipped over it. I've coached youth football in Lincoln for about 18 years. I'm done now, but while I was doing it, I would go to the coaches clinics and in the spring. So the first one I went to was the last year of Solich. So when Bo Pelini came and was the defensive coordinator, and then the last one I went to was the second year of Frost. And from my perspective, I saw it over the years, kind of what you said, the old VHS tape thing. When I first started going, that was a lot of how those connections were coaches were here for so long. Solich was here for so long. They knew all the high school coaches, shook hands, here's a tape, keep an eye on this kid who's a sophomore. He's, he might be good in a year or two, that kind of thing. And when those relationships started to kind of fall off because we were switching coaching staffs every few years, I think, Nebraska, when I say we stopped recruiting Nebraska as well as we could. And then when that happened, other teams weren't coming in either. And all of a sudden it was like this narrative that, well, Nebraska doesn't have talent here. I was like, you know what? North Dakota State built a dynasty up there on the backs of a lot of Nebraska kids that we weren't recruiting here. So,
yeah, well, things definitely change. When I first started coaching was when Frank Solich was at Nebraska, and there was definitely a change between his staff and when the Callahan regime came in. And we mentioned off air a little bit earlier, I had several kids at my previous school, Overton, which was a much smaller school, that I know would have been recruited by other staffs. And not only that, I mean, they probably would have played because they were very, very good football players, but they just, the in-state kids were definitely not a priority for a while there. And that's kind of what I love about what's going on right now with Coach Frost. I mean, it definitely is a priority. And this year they're really getting out and taking a look at all the Nebraska schools, or as many as they can. And, it's hard because there's a lot of schools out there. And here's another thing to add to the comment of why there's more kids getting out there and getting recruited. 20 years ago, it was the assistant coach's job. There might have been a recruiting coordinator, but it was the assistant coach's job to get all that film gathered up and watch it and do the evaluation. Well, now every major college has got an army of recruiting specialists on staff. So just the amount of kids that they can look at and evaluate, and the sheer amount of stuff they can do with recruiting is far, far more than it used to be back when, the coaches had to, get ready for spring ball and get ready for the season. And on top of that, they had to do the majority of the recruiting work. So with those recruiting staffs, I think that's been a major game changer also, to allow more kids to get evaluated.
Yeah. You go back and you watch or look at some of the recruiting areas that assistant coaches had back in like the 90s. And it was bizarre because it'd be like, Ron Brown has Missouri and also the Panhandle, and like it was so segmented down to Northeast Nebraska, but that was the requirements. Those assistants, man, they had to take care of it, and it was national, it was local stuff, but it was more the most important thing was the philosophy that Osborne always had of you recruit inside first, and then you work your way out. And if there's two players and all things are equal between two players, and one of them is from Nebraska and one of them's from California or whatever, but they're equal, I'd take that Nebraska kid. 9 times out of 10, I'd take that Nebraska kid. And sometimes I've seen it seem to almost be flipped the other way around during different eras. And I like where we're at right now with that. I keep showing this graphic, and part of the graphic is, to your point, you said they're kind of recruiting everywhere. And I'm seeing the Omaha Metro, and that's great. I'm seeing Lincoln being recruited, and that's great. I'm also seeing Scotts Bluff and Pierce and Ainsworth. So it really is kind of going, Nebraska's at its best when all of Nebraska is supporting it.